Hello, everybody. It's great to have you here. Tonight we are talking to Sammi Russo. Sammi Russo is a incredible real estate agent who is based here in Victoria. And as you may know, Victoria and New South Wales are certainly having absolutely hot property markets going on at the moment. And one of the incredible things is that we have been able to get tonight, and let me assure you, she is very busy because so many real estate agents right now are struggling to keep up with the amount of demand that is in the market. Thanks for joining me, Sammi. How are you going, keeping up with how hot and crazy this market is at the moment?
It is crazy at the moment. I feel like people are coming out of nowhere and purchasing in places they've never thought of before, which that's one thing that's been really surprising to me. I'll try and get my light right.
No, that's okay. You look great.
Awesome. Trying to work with the ring light. That's better. Thank you so much for inviting me on.
No, you're very welcome. And now you're based not quite in central Melbourne. You're not in that inner ring where often people talk about, that's the place to be. You're actually based out further. You're based out over near Seymour, Wallen area. I want to say
Victoria,
Nagambie.
Yeah. So I personally live in Nagambie and I service from Nagambie down to Wallen, so the Mitchell Shire, Strathbogie Shire corridor. A little bit different for country agents because we travel a bit longer in distance and cover more of an area. Yeah, it's been interesting. Definitely. It's been a bit different from Melbourne market, but definitely is still a strong dynamic up here. Yeah. Yes, and regional Victoria. I'm reading some questions while they come through.
Yeah. So now what I guess comes to my mind is two things out that way. One is there is the Mitchelton Winery out there, which I'm pretty sure is close to you. And I think the other one is not only the Mitchelton Winery, but you've then also, I think, got the Jayco, where they put together all the Jayco caravans.
In the works at the moment, yeah. But Jerry Ryan does live up here, so he's up here and he owns the Mitchelton Winery. We've got a heap of other fabulous wineries. It's a bit of a wine town, and Black Caviar as well.
Really? I did not know that.
It's the home of Black Caviar, little old Nagambie. Yeah.
I will have to check that out next time I'm up that way.
Definitely.
So are you finding that you are actually seeing a lot of people that previously have perhaps holidayed or had that sort of, day trip getaway, just saying, you know what? Let's do it. Let's move. I'm going up that way. I'm going to Seymour. It's going to be great.
Yeah. I think a lot of people from Melbourne have been in that COVID mindset of being stuck down in Melbourne, not being able to move. And we were super lucky and grateful to be able to still move in regional Victoria. There was a period when we were shut down with Mitchell Shire, but overall we've been pretty relaxed up here, which has been great. And I found a lot of people who have holidays in the area and they're like, why don't we make the move? And affordability is a really key factor. So Seymour, we still have a train that runs every hour on the train line. So that one, the commute into Melbourne has been fabulous for that. And just different people coming to the area. But honestly, they've been coming from everywhere. I had a couple purchase recently from Werribee, never been to the area. Come and purchase in Seymour. So it has been shocking for people moving out of town, selling up in big dollars in Melbourne and coming buying something so sustainable in Seymour. So it's crazy, yeah.
Yeah. Now, I should say for everybody that's actually watching, you're also on TikTok as well. And I feel like you love TikTok more than Instagram, but that's okay.
I do. I feel like the organic reach on TikTok has been incredible. So I started TikTok in lockdown. So it was March this time last year, pretty much. While sitting from home, like, what am I going to do now? We thought real estate was going to crash. We thought it was dead. So wrong. But so I started doing TikToks on giving advice and helping people into the market anywhere I can, because I feel like it's such a such a big decision, such a huge decision you make in your life. And literally, I would say 80% of purchases, you come into a real estate agency, they rush you through everything and then like, here, sign this. And you're like, I have so many questions. So I sort of wanted to bridge that gap. I remember when I first bought my first property, it was only a block of land, but it was so like, oh, here, do this, sign this. And I was like, oh, what am I doing? Spending so much money. You know, Google's your best friend. We're so lucky now. We do have TikTok and things like that. So I really want to add more value to people purchasing and buying. You know, it's hard to cover all aspects, but I have people ask me questions daily and I love it. But I've always been on Instagram, but I just feel like TikTok's got that more organic reach where people love video. People love seeing people, whereas Instagram's a lot of in the feed. But I do have Instagram stories is probably my number one where I put all my effort into. Instagram stories and TikTok, more personal, touch. Yep.
It's and I think somebody's saying Ryan is saying TikTok is more superior. Okay.
It's changed. When you first got on TikTok, I remember when I first started, it was people making dances up and doing, you know, childish things and stuff like that. Like, this is a kid's app. And I got so much shit for when I was first. Sorry if I'm swearing. I got so much crap for it because everyone's like, that's a kid's app. What are you doing on TikTok? And then it just took off. So now it is, you know, and with TikTok, what you like on your For You page is what you'll show up on your page. So the more videos you like, that's what you're going to see. So if you want to see something different, if you want to see more about real estate, search the hashtag real estate and that will come up on your feed more. So there's a little TikTok, a little fun fact.
Yeah. Can we cross promote? I'm not sure, but that's okay. So Ryan, you're asking who's the woman down the bottom there. That would be Sammi Russo. She is our real estate agent on tonight. And I think one of the interesting things is that you really have embraced just social media more than I think some other real estate agents. And it's great to be able to, I think, see more Australian real estate agents. I don't know about you, but I certainly see a lot of American real estate agents. I see a lot of American finance advice being given, and it's a very different market to here in Australia, obviously.
Absolutely.
Do you get lots of different questions around that? I know that when I have, you know, scrolled the comments on your TikTok and also on your Insta, you get questioned a lot around the cost of a home. So if a home is selling for $350, a lot of people kind of saying, wait a minute, why are you selling houses for $350? I'm like, it exists, people.
Yeah, regional Victoria in Seymour, our medium house price is $350,000. So there is absolutely still homes, the 3-bedroom, you know, slightly renovated homes. They do go for cheaper. One sold recently last week, I think it was, for $249,000. They're still very affordable in Seymour. It's just that little bit further out. But to touch on what you're saying about social media as well, I've been in real estate for 10 years. In June is my 10-year mark.
Congratulations, almost.
And I always watch people on social media, and you always see real estate agents like this sold, this listed, and it's so boring. Like, unless you are looking in the market hot in that moment, for me, watching it as a consumer and a real estate agent, I was so bored by those posts. I'm like, this is so boring. I want to be able to connect with my followers and have them comfortable enough to ask me questions. I get people ask me questions from all over Victoria who are not purchasing through me, but feel like they can trust me enough to come online, ask me a question saying, hey, I'm looking at this property. What do you think about this? Or what should I offer? You know, just random questions, which I feel is a lot nicer way to go about it. And then people trust me, and then they'll recommend me to sell their house or buy through me and things like that. So it's a really nice way for me to have that little bit of point of difference.
And I guess in many ways you can also, I guess, showcase the beauty that is within that Mitchelton Shire as well. While people are looking to live elsewhere and move around quite a bit, it really is an opportunity to be able to show what your neck of the woods is really like.
It's done for me. TikTok has such an organic reach where I have reached people all over Australia. And like you said, they're coming to me and saying, you can buy a house for $350. So yes. And our rental rates are really high as well. So they're usually a 7% rent on anything in Seymour, which is astronomical. We do have Puckapunya, which is the army base a couple of kilometers away, and a lot of the army base rent in town. So it's a really strong rental market. And I'm finding people from TikTok are now contacting me looking at properties in Seymour because they've seen me on TikTok, which is so cool. I love that.
That is amazing. So when people get in contact with you, I think I saw one of your TikToks a little while ago where you actually ended up having to remind people that you work for the vendor or the seller and not for them as the buyer. Do people get this misconception a lot?
All the time. I know the TikTok you're referring to. So one of the TikToks I did was, I get asked all the time, was the purchaser will ask me, what is the lowest price the vendor will take? Which it's my job to get the highest price for the vendor. So if you think about the shoe on the other foot, I get paid by the vendor. So I'm not going to tell you, yeah, he's going to take 300, like, give me 300. I want to work for the vendor and get the best price, but it is a little bit of a misconception, and it happens all the time. Everyone's like, what's the lowest price they'll go? Like, it's not how this works. Make an offer and I can take it to them. More than happy, but yeah, it is a bit of a misconception there.
And so now, are you seeing that because people are trusting you in that way, you're able to help to push the price up for the vendor, or does that really kind of not happen,
Not so much in that way, I suppose. Not in that way. It's more like still people's affordability and that sort of thing comes into it. And the vendors always have a figure in mind. Like now, obviously, it's just a ridiculous market. And I'm more so seeing people miss out now than properties hold on the market. So like there was a time when a property might be on the market for 6 months. It got an offer of 300 and they wanted 320, and then they'd end up selling for 290 because they were just being ridiculous about their price. But in right now in the current market, I'm just seeing people miss out on things. Like it's just crazy. Yeah. Different market at the moment.
Completely different. Yeah. And certainly I know I've seen some of your stuff talking about bank valuations, and I think that's been one of the biggest hurdles to people being able to get finance at the moment. Certainly, obviously, I'm on the lending side of things, but that's really been one of the key sticking points is people valuations from the bank, which aren't necessarily always going to match what your purchase price is. And there have been times we've seen it, I think I've seen that you've seen it as well, where the valuation just doesn't get to what that purchase price is, which means that all of a sudden people have to have a whole bunch of extra money sitting there that they can then contribute towards that purchase to then still be able to buy the property. Now, I think you've had a deal fall over or a sale fall over because of that reason. Is that now something that you're becoming more concerned with?
Yes, because it's another misconception, I suppose. When I had one recently that fell over, it was $30,000 under. So signed contract at a certain price, bank fell 30 grand under. And a lot of people think, when I tell this story to people, they're like, oh, what? So he didn't have 30 grand. I'm like, it doesn't work like that. You need like a bank, depending on your circumstance, as you would know. Yeah. Mostly banks lend 90%, but 80% obviously is ideal. So 80% of the valuation price, not what he has or what he can afford. So that's a bit of a misconception. More just a frustration about trying to reach those levels. And I get it as a bank and a valuer as well, that you do need to back that up, because if something does turn in the market, then we're back to square one. So I do understand it's for a reason, but that has been a struggle at the moment with, that sort of misconception of it. Or not misconception, more just the struggle of people are happy to pay the money and they're getting in the hot market and all the prices are coming up. But unless you have that cash, it's flipping over the other side, unfortunately. Yeah, it's a real struggle.
Yeah, and I think certainly I try to talk to our clients about how when that valuation comes through, that valuation is really quite key, because it's looking at properties that have settled over the last 3 months, 6 months. It's not what's actually sold. And often people think, oh, no, it's just what's sold. I saw this house that sold last weekend for whatever, X amount of dollars. So therefore this place must be valued at the same amount. And it's actually not that. It's based on what has settled and gone through to that. And if we think about, I guess, settlements take 30 to 90 days, there's a big difference there. So yeah, it's
also the area. So Like, and a lot of people say like, oh, but this 3-bedroom house sold for this and that 3-bedroom house sold for this. But if it's brick veneer in a good area, if it's weatherboard, it's all going to make such a core difference to the price value. So that's another, little thing that's worrying as well.
And for you, it would also be land size. I imagine land size is actually a really big component that adds quite a lot of value to the valuations, obviously the sale price for yourself where you are as well.
A lot of properties. I sold one, it just went unconditional yesterday actually. It was a farm zone property, so there's only one comparable property that sold in 12 months. It's like it. So complete different properties on 7 acres, and beautiful views, on town water. Like, it was really beautiful property, but they struggled with the valuation because it was zoned farming for one, and there was nothing else comparable to it. So the bank does have to sort of take a gamble on that as well, that it's worth that much.
Yeah. And it's also then a gamble on the people, making sure that, they're going to be comfortable enough that these people are going to repay the debt, which I think people forget that you borrow money from the bank, you do have to pay it back. Like, that is the point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So for those that are watching and that have just jumped in, I should say again, down below is Sammi Russo with an R, Russo. And she's a real estate agent who is doing some incredible things in the Mitchelton Shire area. And if you're going to the Mitchelton Winery or any of the other wineries, hit her up and say hi.
Definitely, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And also, if anyone does have any questions, you are watching this live or the replay, feel free to hit me up on Instagram. It's just sammi.russo, R-U-S-S-O. I'll have my tag in there anyway, but yeah, feel free to reach out to me. Instagram is my #1 platform where I message people back. TikTok's a really weird messaging system, but Instagram, I'm always on there. So feel free to reach out, even if it's a question about somewhere else. Happy to answer those as well.
Definitely. Now, I also was wanting to know, because I think I probably ask everybody this because everybody has a story, but do you have any horror stories about properties that you have sold or have tried to sell?
Yeah, well, I've got one that always brings to mind that I've never ever had. This is a bit of country real estate for you. We sold a property in Loxley, which was it was honestly like a castle. The most beautiful property. Vendors hadn't lived there in 12 months. They'd moved on. So it was vacant but still fully furnished. Fabulous property. Anyway, had an inspection one day right in the middle of summer. The couple walked in first into the door. I unlocked the door, opened up the door for them, let them wander through. Then this death-curdling scream, nothing like I've ever heard in my life, from the lady. She takes off past me. I'm like, what's wrong? And a brown snake, slithered across the lounge room floor underneath the cabinet. Country real estate for you. And I'm not scared of snakes. Well, I didn't think I was before that, but going into a house with a snake in it, I couldn't bring myself to go in. They kept going around and ended up making an offer on the property, but I actually could not bring myself to go back in the house.
Yeah, that's proper country real estate.
Yeah, we had to have the snake guy come and he couldn't find it. So he was poking around for ages, couldn't find the snake. I was like, no, I just can't bring myself to go back in there. That was my horror
fair
story.
enough. Yeah, fair enough. Brown snakes, that's pretty deadly. You don't want to mess around with them.
It's like habitat. I feel like it's very trapped in there, and they just said it must have got out by itself. I was like, not for me.
Hopefully.
Yeah, but I suppose in real estate, every day is a story. We deal with so many different demographics, different people, different times of their life, whether they're selling for, a sad reason or an exciting, positive reason. We are sort of like counselors in real estate, where we have to manage the people's emotion and hold their hand throughout the process of it. So it's a very, very emotional job. And it's about dealing with people. I say this all the time on my Instagram and TikTok, that real estate is about dealing with people. It's very little about houses. Like, you could go into real estate not knowing anything about houses. As long as you can deal with people, you'll be fine. that's
very true. So you've been in real estate for 10 years. Have you always been in the same area?
I was with a franchise before, so I was with 8 years with a franchise company in the Gambie, and then I moved to an independent company about 2 years ago, I think, roughly. And yeah, so now I'm with a really unique brand, which is called A Little Birdie Told Me, and we get laughed at all the time, but we are so unique. My boss who started the company wanted to be a little bit outside the box, which is very me. And all of our signboards are quite quirky and different. We have the one I just sold and sold to everyone yesterday was Honey, Stop the Car. So it had a big picture and it was like, Honey, stop the car. You know, we like to sort of grab attention of people, and we do little quirky things like that with our marketing, which I think is so important. It breaks down the barrier of being boring, and you know, it makes people laugh and people question what we do and they're like, what does that mean? And it gets people talking on the subject. So yeah, I think I absolutely love the company I'm with. We're an incredible team, and just not like any normal real estate agency. So it's good. Yeah.
So if somebody is going and looking at a property, wanting to buy a property, or actually no, let's talk about selling a property, because really, I guess that's really the more important side from your perspective anyway. If somebody's wanting to sell a property, when they're comparing all of the different real estate agents, I mean, what I hear, and obviously I'm just a mortgage broker, so I don't know, but people mostly are just looking at, you know, what is the commission that they're going to take, and that's it. They're not really going too much further into it. But you're right, there are lots of real estate agents that are boring and a bit old school, and then there are others that are a bit more unique and quirky and eye-catching. And from your perspective, what do you think people should be looking for? How do they pick a real estate agent?
And you put the nail on the head when you said about money. A lot of people only care about money. I've had people come list with me after they've been with other real estate agents. They're like, oh, they never rang me back. They never rang me back. And I said, and my biggest advice now when we're walking into an appraisal with a client, after we have discussions, talk about everything, answer any questions, I always say to them, make sure I don't care who you pick, like pick someone who is suited and fitted for you and that you feel like you can trust, because at the end of the day, they are selling the biggest asset you have, and you want to be able to trust they're making the right decision for you and acting out of your best interests. So I always throw in the high energy card, because I am extremely high energy, and I'm just a strong believer that you can't put your emotions on people. Everyone has really bad days, but no one wants to come look at a house with me when I'm really grumpy or down and just open up the door and walk you through. I like to be that bit of a show agent, like showing you around and talking about property and trying to connect with people. So that's something I always say to people, is choose an agent that you feel like is going to do the best job for you. Don't always make it about money. At the end of the day, a lot of agents will match commission. The country's a little bit different again, where it's a little bit less of us to compete with. But yeah, it's all about finding that person's going to do the best job for you, and you can always negotiate commissions and pricings. But yeah, don't go just for the cheap one that said, I'll do it way cheaper than that person, because 9 times out of 10, they're not going to work as hard. It's like anything. If you were getting paid minimum wage, are you going to work a full-time job in 12-hour days? It's the same sort of thing. You're probably not going to put in the same effort. Yeah, it's a hard one.
So then from the buyer side, you have people get in touch with you, and I'm assuming a lot of the time it's through realestate.com or Domain or the local paper, perhaps, maybe. But when they get in touch with you, obviously they go through, they check the place out, they put in an offer. Let's say they actually then win the offer. In that instance, you then go through a couple of other steps with the buyer as well. And I think you end up doing, I guess like most people, a pre-settlement inspection. And I feel like there's a lot of people that don't realize that this is part of the process. So could you just talk to us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely feel like that a lot of people don't realize maybe. I think a lot of solicitors push it nowadays. I'm finding it's a lot more common. But I always suggest it for even just the little things. Like if you're doing a pre-settlement inspection, I've done a couple of TikToks on this as well, that checking that your air conditioner remotes are there, the amount of times the vendors have packed them, and then by the time it settles and they move in 3 days later, and then they realize, then the vendors have lost them, and then it's just like, it's so much easier to do it before it settles. So So little things like that. And I always say to them, like, come and measure the fridge space, make sure your fridge fits, or come and check it out one more time while it's empty, because then you see things differently. It's also a really nice moment for me to walk through the house with them, and they're watching how happy and excited they are. Like, no matter what happens, like if finance has been difficult, or if building and pest was difficult, or negotiation, and then it's like they've done it, they've won it, they're about to settle, and they're just in that moment so excited to be moving into their house, or an investment, which is not as emotional. But I do think it's really important, but it is up to the buyer to book this in. And I still, would ring them a couple of days before and say, hey, you're going to book in for a final? And they're like, no, it's all good. We're not going to travel up twice, which is fine as well. But I do think it's important just to get that final look around, make sure everything's there. I've touched wood in front of me is my desk. I've never had one go wrong where someone's taken something out of the house, but I do hear about it in Melbourne where in the contract's written like dishwasher staying and they've taken it out. Because if that sort of thing happens after it's settled, it's too late. That's why you do your pre-settlement inspection to make sure those items are still in there. And it's just a good time to just make sure everything's right. Another thing is to switch the meter box power off. So you're putting the mains off so you can connect your power, things like that. It's just a really good wraparound inspection. Yeah.
So Dave's actually just said make sure the inspection is not the day before settlement, because it's not enough time to fix any problems if they arise, which is an excellent point, Dave.
Always suggest 3 days is my sort of thing, because you want to make sure it's empty. You don't want to have it a week before, because if they've got all their furniture in, it's actually not what it's going to be like. So I always go 3 days is my little thing. Yeah.
Good time frame.
Yeah.
Good time frame. So for people that are trying to buy at the moment, and I should also just say so that everybody knows, you are Sammi Russo and you are a real estate agent here chatting with us, also on TikTok, also on Insta. Go follow her in all of the places. But the other thing is it's a really hot market. So you've now started to see people missing out on properties. Do you have advice now for people that are looking to buy for how they actually can win one of these properties, one of these mythical almost properties that are available?
Definitely. A couple of points that are big advice is you need pre-approval in this current market, as you would know yourself. Being in finance, pre-approval is absolutely, and like you have to have pre-approval before you start looking, or tell the agent that you're just having a bit of fun on a Saturday and go to open homes. Don't waste their time. Definitely get pre-approval, because in this market we are seeing, or in regional Vic, I can talk for myself, we're seeing a minimum 21-day turnaround for finance approval up here. So if you don't have pre-approval, it's going to be another couple of weeks on top of that, and vendors are not going to accept that, and you may miss out on a contract. So that would be my biggest tip of advice. The next one is be honest with the agent. Let them know that you're interested. You would not believe the amount of times I will show a client through the inspection. At the end, I always say like, oh, have you got any feedback, tips, pros and cons about the house? Love to know your feedback. And they're like, yeah, it's good. And I'm like, I can't really get a read out of them. And I always say, like, I'm going to give you a call back. Either if it's Saturday, I'll call them back on Monday, or the next day if it's during the week. And they never answer my phone call. So I'll ring them back the next day. And I'm, which can be a downfall, I'm not a super pushy agent. So I don't keep calling. If they don't call me back, I'm taking it as they're not interested. We send out an email. I call them and text them. And if they're not getting back to me, then in my mind, they're not really interested. But then I'll have people come back a week later and say, oh, I'm interested in putting an offer in. And I had one a couple of weeks ago. I accepted an offer that day at I think it was 10 o'clock that day, accepted an offer, signed contracts, and then put it under offer online, because I don't put anything under offer online till it's a signed contract. And then they came back at I think it was 5 o'clock or something, and said, oh, we want to make an offer. And I'm like, oh, you've missed out. And I didn't know you were interested. So things like that, I think always try and be honest with your agent. Say, yeah, I'm interested. Keep me in mind if any offers are made on a property. Yeah, definitely a good one. And book a second inspection straight away. So when you go through a house on Monday and you're like, yep, this could be the one, say, do you mind if we come back tomorrow? Because you'll think about it all night, and there'll be things you'll say to your partner like, did you see the fridge space? Did that have heating and cooling? What color carpet it was? You talk about it at night. So book another inspection straight away. I have people do that all the time. I think it's really important to get the ball rolling if you are serious in this hot market. That's my tip.
Yeah. So we've started to see quite a few clients, when they're doing that first inspection, if it's a place that they think they might be interested in, from the moment they walk onto the property start filming, so that then later on, after they leave, later that day or the next day, they can go back and they can actually just re-watch the video of them walking around the place to see what is this property actually even like, and it just helps to trigger what's going on in the property. But in your experience, do a lot of people walk through a second or a third time?
With the video thing, I've noticed it more common since COVID, but I still feel if the house is fully furnished, I feel people are uncomfortable filming. But they'll always, like I always say, like, if you want to take some pictures, you're more than welcome to, but some people feel a bit uncomfortable with that. I did have one video walkthrough today that had a walk through the property, but not as common. I feel like they also want to come back and look at different items. So I do feel like in my area it's common, but I think Melbourne's like strike while the island's hot. You've got one shot and buy it straight away and video it. So we're a little bit more lucky in the regional area, I think. Just another thing I just thought of though, another thing is have a conveyancer. So a lot of people don't know that you need a conveyancer when you're purchasing a home. So a conveyancer will look over your paperwork, so your contract and your vendor statement that you're signing. So that is another thing I would definitely recommend. Line one of those up, have a chat to someone you want to use, so you've got them on call to send the paperwork straight away.
Yeah. And I guess I should say, for those that are following my Insta page, then if you go back into the series, the first person I spoke to was a conveyancer, a solicitor named Betty from Blueprint Legal. And it is so important to get that actually just sorted. I certainly know I took a call today from a client who said, do I send the contract to the solicitor before I sign it and have the offer accepted, or after the offer gets accepted? Like, before, definitely before.
Yes. Yeah. It is an important thing. And people say, like, I've had a quick look through it, but there's little things that, like, one thing I always say as a basic to look out for is if you're wanting to put a shed in the backyard, if it doesn't have one, or if it's a block of land, check for easements. That's my number one thing I always say to people. Or if I'm showing them properly, I'm like, just so you know, this one has no easements. It's always a positive. Little things like that, or any covenants or things like that pertaining to the land. Your solicitor will explain it all to you. But yeah, definitely get it looked over. I've seen some doozies.
So then I guess I do have more questions, by the way. Somebody has said, hard to fix a problem after the contract is signed. Very true, David. That is very true. And I think a lot of people just don't quite put the links together of all of the different people that are actually just involved in purchasing a property, really. I think a lot of people just turn up and think all I have to do is pick which property I like, put in an offer, it gets accepted, and that's it. And the bank will say yes, and off you go. But there are a lot more people involved in it than just that.
It's like something in my area, being a really old town, heritage overlays are a huge issue on a lot of homes. So if that in your contract might be something you overlook and you're saying, yep, I want to knock it down and build something else, where you might not be able to. So that's another thing. Yeah, definitely. There's heaps of things that arise like that that need to get checked over for.
Now, where you are, Sammi, you are, I probably should say for new people that have jumped in, you are in regional Victoria. And do you guys get much in the way of auctions, or is it all by private treaty?
90% private treaty. We do have in the Gambie, if it's a unique like waterfront property, because we've got the lake here, that usually goes for auction, or farming properties. I've got two auctions coming up actually, but they're very, very unique properties. I find that if it's anything like a 3 or 4 bedroom home, it's really hard because you have to have finance done and dusted with an auction. You cannot bid on an auction subject to finance or building inspection or anything like that. It has to be cash offer, and you do not get a cooling off period. So a lot of people say to me, oh, it's all good, I'll get my, bank sorted out in 3 days or whatever. I'm like, no, you don't. You cannot pull out of a contract on an auction. It's pay the deposit on the day. So it doesn't work as well in the regional market unless they're sort of over that $600,000-$700,000 mark, and they're quite unique where you're dealing with people who normally do have cash. So yeah, that's more in that sort of market. Yep, but it is exciting. I do like auctions.
Yeah, very different ball game. But in that type of environment where you are working with a seller to be able to sell at auction, if somebody comes through and they haven't arranged your finance, I know you've certainly worked with Two Broker Girls, which is a brokerage out there. They're amazing.
There is the best.
Do you give people a nudge and kind of say, hey, go chat to Two Broker Girls, or go get your finance sorted because you're going to miss out?
I always prompt them to say, make sure you get finance sorted. I find it a really fine line about recommendations, and I've talked about this on my Instagram before, that like 80% of the world don't trust real estate agents as it is. So I always give them a few options, or if someone asks me why.
Hold on, Sammi. I'm going to pull you up there because you know what? I'm pretty sure that during COVID, you guys like bumped up higher to being far more trustworthy than politicians.
That's true. Valid point. No, I know, but I always feel like it's such a fine line of when people say, here, use this person. I try and give context to why I recommend them, or if someone's had a good experience. So if an agent is recommending a building inspector or a finance, I always ask them context for it. But yeah, absolutely. Everyone that comes through, my first question, especially at the moment, is, do you have pre-approval? Yeah, so that's definitely a big one that needs to be done.
Yes. Now, have you had anybody pull out of contracts? Because sometimes that happens too. Not always, but certainly I know we've had clients that have pulled out of contracts, not necessarily for finance. I've had clients get declined, but we've always found some way to get it done in the end. We have had people pull out of contracts though because of building and pest inspections. Do you guys see that very much up there?
Yeah, a lot in there. And I always recommend to get one done. It's such a fine line again, because people always ask my opinion. They're like, oh, is the house okay? I'm like, I'm not a builder. You're not taking my word for it. Definitely book an inspection, and a lot of times, like the ones up in our area too are really thorough with explaining things. So I've heard of ones in Melbourne that, well, actually one story I'll tell you, it was horrible. It was 5 or 6 years ago. The building inspector, not naming names, but the building inspector could not physically fit underneath the house. So he said it could have termites in the report. So he told his clients could have termites, I'd suggest pulling out. And there was no signs of termites. It was not in a termite prone area, but didn't do any more further research or anything into it. And the whole deal was failed. Like the vendor was furious. I felt like getting under there because I would have fit under there. But anyway, I don't know what I'm looking for. But things like that, I think, but a lot of them, like 90% of them that I do use or that are up in this area do explain things. So they might say, look, there's a bit of wood damage on the side of that balcony, but if you just replace that with this, it'll be fine. Whereas I think Melbourne are very tick box as well. It's like, no, it's structurally damaged and it's no good. And there's no way to fix it. Whereas country, I think we're a little bit more flexible in that. But absolutely, definitely seeing people pull out from that. Or termites. Termites is one that no one can really help. And a lot of people don't know. I had a double brick unit in the Gebby. So it was a double brick. So all that was wood was the architraves and the doors and things like that. And they were eaten alive by termites. And it's not something you would think about looking at double brick home. You're like, it'll be fine. No,
solid. Yeah, interesting.
Very bizarre. But yeah, it does happen. People do pull out of contracts, and it's emotional for all parties involved, always.
Always, yes. I think that's probably the key. There is just so much emotion that is happening at this particular junction of time for everybody on both the seller side and on the buyer side. It is just, everything kind of going at stress.
It is, absolutely. Yep.
So do you have any other tips for people that are looking to buy properties, or perhaps say them again,
Yes.
because I'm pretty sure we've got a whole bunch of new people on.
Yes, hello. I think definitely ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. And in this current market, try and jump on things really quickly. Like I will get, I don't know, like 30 to 40 emails a day inquiring about properties. And some of them will say purely just, is this property still available? Or can I book an inspection? So then I go back to the person. I said, sure, when would you like? I'm free these days. And then they'll write back in like 6 hours, and then the property's already got 3 offers on it. So my other advice with that would definitely be, if you are inquiring on realestate.com, you don't have to put your phone number, because I know a lot of people don't, because they don't want to be harassed by agents. Totally get that. But put more context and say, look, are you available on Thursday between these 2 times? I would love to come and have a look. And it, sets up the time straight away and gets them into the market straight away. They don't miss out as well, because a lot of people don't like picking up the phone still. We're in a generation where we're all on the phone now, and we can quickly send a text or an email and we won't pick up the phone. So I think, save you missing out, definitely jump on the front foot, because I'm out and about all day at inspections. So I check my emails in between inspections, when I'm in the car, when I'm about to go in for an inspection, if someone's running late. So, I might miss it if you write back 12 hours later, and then we've lost a whole day. That's another big tip.
Yeah, which and at the moment that's pretty important. Like losing an entire day to just go and inspect a property, that's a long time. A lot can happen for the person that is selling, but also even you as a buyer, you might see other things that, wait a minute, is there a cat there?
What are you doing on?
just wants to get in on the phone.
Great, now everyone knows I'm a crazy cat lady.
No, all good. So with, I just want to go back, I think, to one of your earlier tips, which really was that you work for the seller. And that is your job. Your job is really to get the most amount of money that you possibly can for the seller. But I think I want to just chat to you, because I've noticed a few more people jump on, talking about what it is that you're doing as a real estate agent, because there's actually a lot of different elements that happen. And I recently sold a property, an investment property, and I was surprised at how much is happening that is sort of behind the scenes, things that you don't think about as somebody buying. You don't think about it.
Oh, yeah, I don't even know where to start with that. That's a big question. I think there's so much involved, even getting a property to market. So, and a fun fact that some people don't understand too is, as a real estate agent, I don't get paid until the house settles. So I could show a house, especially in regional Victoria, I could show it, 15, 20 times, and it's not sold, and I don't get paid for it, or it comes off the market, or things change, or or they have a 120-day settlement. That means I don't get paid for that 120 days. So we do a lot of running around. It's one of those jobs that's very rewarding, but it's time as well. So it's putting in a lot of effort with not seeing it straight away. Like my husband is in the other room, he'll hear me talking about him, but he works in a government job. So he gets paid per, 15 minutes, and it's right on the dot, and it's very precise and organized, whereas real estate is chaotic. So it's like a totally different world in that sort of aspect. So once a person comes in to list their home with you, we, from start to finish, we're organising photos, doing write-ups, preparing the property for sale, putting it online, sending it to database, logging it, ordering Section 32s, all that paperwork behind the scenes, then pushing it out to the world, booking open homes, private inspections. I'm a so big believer in getting to the house early and putting every single light switch on that's possible, opening the curtains, doing all those little detail things. I have the place I sold yesterday that went unconditional, has a pool table and they have a cover on it. Every single inspection, I took the pool cover off, set it all up, made it look amazing. It's those little things that, I think a lot of people don't see the behind the scenes of that. And then it's the getting back to people. So someone wants to make an offer, they ring the vendor's at work, they ring you back after hours, and I'm negotiating after hours. And doing contracts and everything like that. It is, yeah, very involved. You're right. Like a lot of things you don't see. They're like, oh yeah, I'm going to show a house today. I'm going to walk through the house. And I think I try and do like a little behind the scenes videos on TikTok, and I've started doing a little bit more on Instagram of just showing like little bits of details into it. One went viral. Then I was turning on the light switches. Someone's commenting on my TikTok like, what the heck are you doing? I'm like, yeah, that's how many light switches I turn on a day. Like it is very involved in that sort of aspect. And I love every minute of it. But yeah, you're right. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes that people don't see. They just think, oh, your job is so easy. You just, take someone through a house, accept an offer, easy days. But it's, a long process. Even with finance now, so being, as I said, our area is 21-day minimum for finance approval at the moment in regional Victoria. I have not seen one get through faster than that in the last 3 months, unless they're cash, obviously, but that's the only one. And it's working through that. So I diarise every day to talk to each person because I want to check in with them because they might have a small request that I can help quicker than the solicitor can. So I can ring the vendor and ask quicker. So it's marrying up all those items, and then once unconditional, process from there, collecting deposits and things like that. It is very involved. You're right. A detailed question.
Yeah, well, it is, but it's also from the buyer's perspective. A question I get asked a lot is, at what point do you pay the deposit? And I have had clients say to me, do I just give you my deposit now? And I'm sitting there going, I don't take your money. What are you talking about? That would be nice.
I am going to do a TikTok on that. I'm just going to write that down because I just got asked that today. I got asked for a question from the purchaser. He said, okay, so do I pay the full amount just to you at settlement? I'm like, no, it actually goes to the solicitor, which is another thing people don't realize. And another false misconception about real estate agents, which I hear all the time. When we receive a deposit, it goes into a trust account, which we are not allowed to earn interest on. It's a big misconception because I get people ask me, can I pay 5% deposit because I don't want you making interest on my deposit? I'm like, that's not how it works. I've been asked that before. So definitely that. What happens is we receive the deposit into our trust account on the signed contract, and then we transfer it through into the solicitor or conveyancer's trust. Or if they don't have a trust account, we do it straight on settlement, straight to the vendor. Well, the vendor seller. That way. So it is. It's a whole different thing that's you forget to, and you keep running in real estate doing the same thing, and then you have someone ask me like, where do you pay the full balance? I'm like, I didn't really talk about that in depth. It's stuff that people don't know. That's a good question. Yeah.
I have another one for you, again regarding people's deposit. So I get asked the question a lot, do I pay 5%, 10%, 20%? And if I pay 10% or a 20% deposit, is there a difference? And will the vendor be willing to accept my offer over somebody else's deposit or offer if I offer a 20% deposit instead of a 10% deposit?
And I've had that asked before, and on the spot. So for instance, if someone comes in, it depends on the circumstance and the settlement more so than, so if it's one unconditional and can pay 5%, but the other one, which they should have more than that, but you know what I mean? Like it depends on the circumstance as well. I think the whole 10% and 5% is negotiable with our land. So we sell a lot of land in Seymour, Kilmore area and Avenel. We accept 5% deposit on the land contract because they are a lower price and it's a really great entry point for first home buyers. But most houses will only accept 10% unless your circumstance, if you're waiting for a deposit from somewhere else, like if you're selling your house and you only have 5% saved and then you're using the rest from your house you're selling, it can all be negotiated. But you've got to think about it. I always say to the buyers, like, put yourself in the vendor's shoes. If for whatever reason you can't go through with the sale, they've held it off the market for maybe 3 months for you, ready for settlement, and you've pulled out. So now they've only got, they do keep their money, the deposit, but it's usually at a higher fee. And it's also like a show of good faith as well, I think, that you do have the full 10%. That is, and it shows you financially without, because a lot of people are very private with their finances too. They wouldn't want to say like, oh, I'm borrowing 90%. So if they do have a 10% deposit, to us, it shows good faith that they've got more money and they're probably more sturdy to suit it. Yeah, but I don't get asked a lot about the 20% thing. It's more, 5 and 10, they get negotiated on a lot. Yeah, first home buyers is probably a key, because in regional Victoria here, where I am, they first home buyers, if you are building, you get $20,000 from the government. So that scheme is up until the 30th June this year as well. But I mean, they may extend it. They have for the last 2 years. I don't know what's going to be. Haven't heard yet.
And it's not just that though. Like, it's that 20% deposit, and then if you're building as well, then you're also going to get 15 grand back if your contract signed today.
Just finished, yeah.
They might extend it.
Yeah, that's another one, exactly. But the 20,000 still from the government is huge. And what the government's allowing is to use that towards the bank as your deposit. So if you have that plus $10,000 saved, there's $30,000. So if you're buying a $300,000 property, like building or brand new, you've got a 10% deposit with the bank right there. So that's a good thing as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think we've had a few questions come through. It's hard to keep track of them, I've got to say. If I was better at this, then this would go far more smoothly, but I'm not. So
you're doing well. I think
so. Someone said,
saying, go.
Is there a correlation between the percentage of the deposit and LMI? And the LMI that you pay is related to how much you're contributing overall, not necessarily just your deposit. Your deposit might be 10%, but you might actually have 30% sitting in savings, and you're going to add all of that 30% to the purchase when it goes through to settlement, which means in that instance you wouldn't pay LMI, but it's related to how much overall money you're throwing into that purchase at settlement. I think that's probably an easier way to answer that.
LMI if you're a 20% lend, correct? It's that whole misconception thing of that too. Yeah. But some banks will do the 5%, but you will have to pay lender's mortgage insurance on top of your loan. But a good entry way to get into the market as well. Do they still have the first homeowner scheme of the no LMI left? Is that the government funded LMI for under a certain purchase?
Yeah, some of the lenders still have spots available, but not many of the lenders do, because they release them in 10,000 lots. So they 10,000 fill up, 10,000 fill up. Yeah.
The price point for each area, I think in Seymour it had to be under 375,000. I think a purchase price. Yeah, I think it was different for every area, which is another little. Government incentives. First home buyers have got really great way to get into the market though, like such a good way to get in the market. Yeah,
it really is a case of you sitting there going, if you've got some cash sitting there and you thought at some point I'm going to buy a house, and this is obviously why prices are also going up and there is a lot of demand, everybody's just jumping in because why not?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, for first home buyers, it's such a great time to get in the market for that. But it is the whole missing out on properties has been like a really big key factor at the moment, and investors. So investors are still investing in our area. I know Melbourne has been low in investment because of the whole rental market has changed, and people are working from home permanently, so they don't need to be living in the CBD paying, $700 a week. They can move out into the country. So I think we're hitting the demand up here. There's very little rentals up here. It's crazy.
Yeah. But I guess if you've also got Puckapunyal close by as well, that would also be helping you too. I certainly know down Gippsland Way, they've got the RAF base down there. So they actually see pretty steady from a rental perspective, and it gets tight at sort of these times of year. So, Now, was there anything else that you want to tell us, Sammi, before we wind it up for the evening? Because I realise we've been chatting for a while.
I'm talking a lot. That's probably my fault.
Okay.
It's been really good. Great to chat to you. Again, if anyone's watching this on live or replay, feel free to reach out and message me anytime. If I don't get back to you straight away, just know I'm super busy, but I will get back to you. Feel free to ask any questions that you don't feel comfortable asking another person. I'm more than happy to help out and try and seek that answer for you. It is, yeah, extremely stressful and nerve-wracking purchasing a property, especially for the first time. And that's why your agent is there to help you through the process. But yeah, that's about it. I think I've touched on everything.
Yeah. And if there is anything that we've forgotten, you've got questions, hit Sammi up on Instagram or on TikTok.
Video. Yep.
Yeah, this one, wherever. The internet is probably the correct answer. She is on the internet.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. It's been fun. It's been really good. And you've given me some ideas for some new TikToks. That's always good.
Perfect. Well, thank you for joining me. It's been lots of fun. And it was lovely to see your cat there too. Dawn.
Yeah, she's famously. Thank you so much for having me. It was great to chat.
Yeah, have a lovely evening. And we'll see everybody else later. Ciao.
Yeah, bye.